And welcome back. Sorry we had to take a week off, but stuff came up, so we're back in it this week.
Woo!
And before we get to the subject of the day, I just wanted to throw out current event news in gaming as it relates to one of the subjects we covered on the podcast already.
I didn't do it.
No, you didn't. But
What's your current news then?
the original Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 are coming back to life. It looks like it could be a mild remaster and re-release with full online capabilities.
Full.
So we're talking, I think the article and videos I've looked at said 64 players in the online matches. So
That sounds like too many.
for those maps, the OG Battlefront 1 maybe, but OG Battlefront 2, no, that's good.
I'm just joking.
Because if that's, okay, 64 divided by 2, that's 32 players per team at any given time, max. That's actually pretty decent. So, yeah, that just looks really good. I am really excited for this. And the fact that it's coming out this year, whoop, whoop. So that's my news of the day done. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I have no news.
Okay, then.
No news is good news?
Not all the time, but what is good news is we have a fun subject for today. User experience with user interface, or shortened UX UI, when it relates to video games. Isn't that such an interesting topic just right off the bat?
That's titillating.
The user interface is something that everyone uses regardless what game, what platform, everything basically online in the gaming world, your computer, everything, your phone. It's a user interface.
Yes.
And when it comes to games, I find it really interesting how it evolves from game to game in a series. Have you, like, I can talk about the Assassin's Creed user interface. I can talk about the Forza Horizon and Motorsport user interfaces. You can talk about it in terms of what, Elder Scrolls? And
Yeah.
what other series have you played that you could compare and contrast how it's evolved over the years?
Dragon Age, Mass Effect, probably a couple
So the,
others if I squirrel my brain about it.
so then what game shall we talk about first with the interface?
This is your whole smorgasbord plan, so I suggest I let you pick.
Oh, you're taking the cop out answer, but okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm a cop out.
Uh, well, we're talking Assassin's Creed. That has evolved quite a bit over the years. And even within the last handful of games, it has evolved and changed. But it's also changed given the newer features that the games have included.
Such as.
Going with the first of the RPG trilogy that they released, Assassin's Creed Origins, it had a gear menu where you had a wide range of pre-designed outfits you could equip. You couldn't really change much about the outfits, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
You then jump into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was the next one, and the gear menu is completely different, where you're able to equip different parts of the gear and mix and match different gear sets, and the UI for it was very different from how it was in Origins.
So, you think they improved it to make it a better one?
I honestly think they did.
That's good. Excuse me there. Getting over a little bit of cold, which is why we were unable to record last week. I wasn't feeling too well. Yeah. So, the user interface changed to allow
Accommodate
for
new features.
more features, and that improved your user experience. Did you have any critiques or things you wish they did differently?
Honestly, I feel they did a lot better with how they implemented the new system and the new interface with Odyssey. I will give a critique to Valhalla, which was the next one in this series.
Mm-hmm.
because they removed one of the key features that was in Odyssey at launch. And that was the transmog system, which added to the UI for it.
Mm-hmm.
And them removing that feature didn't drastically change the user interface, but it was confusing thinking, okay, so this was a very popular feature, a very big part of the interface, and then they removed it, and it was just like, I'm sorry, what? Why? Because they did eventually add a transmog feature back into Valhalla, but it was done in a very backwards sort of way with a user interface that really didn't make much sense. And on top of that, it actually costs you money to use it. Well, in-game money. So that really wasn't appreciated.
In-game money. Let me guess, you could buy in-game money through a microtransaction.
I don't remember if you could or not.
I'm almost certain of it.
It is Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft these days. So they've become the kings of the microtransaction. I'm sad to say.
No, they haven't. They're still just the prince.
We've had this debate already.
EA still owns the microtransactions. Or technically, if you want to go into it, mobile games are the fucking emperors of microtransactions because that's all mobile games are.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That said, mobile games also have. Let's transition to mobile games for a second properly.
Mhm.
Because talk about user interfaces, where everything has to be a lot more compact, yet still display enough info for the player to know what they need to do. Given how many different screen sizes there are and how long mobile games have been around, isn't it fascinating how developers adapted to the small screens? Even going back to the old flip phones, back when we had the mobile game Snake, for example.
Nokia! Those things are indestructible.
Not wrong. Like, how simple of a user interface was that? Literally, small screen. You use the buttons to move around the screen. You have a scoreboard, and that was basically it.
Yeah, but that was also basically it for the games you had available. Games nowadays are definitely much more advanced and can do way more cool stuff just because
True.
of the processing capabilities of these newer technologies, which are great fun.
What have been some mobile games you've enjoyed that had interesting user interfaces?
Lately I've been playing this stupid tile match game, which it's kind of like Mahjong, but you have to get 3 tiles down into the thing to clear them off the board, and you have only X amount of space in your things you can move tiles down to, so you sometimes have to waste the space in the thing to uncover a tile to get to the one you need to clear off.
Interesting.
It's like the game in itself is it's a very simplistic game, but like it's just a nice time waster mostly, which is what I do for mobile games.
What's the most complex mobile game you've played?
I don't really play complex ones. Probably one of the SimCity ones. I was playing that for a little bit. That's probably had the most complex user interface and stuff where you had to move around the map, decide where you want to place certain types of buildings and all that kind of stuff.
Not wrong. I've played that game and saw SimCity build it.
Yeah,
And
pretty sure you're the one who told me to play that game.
I'm pretty sure we've had this discussion on one of our prior episodes.
I don't know. We've had so many conversations, it's hard to remember which ones we recorded and which ones are just between us.
But yeah, talk about a complex user interface. I've done that game on a phone, I've done it on a tablet, and it's so much easier to do on a tablet than it is the actual phone.
Well, yeah, just because of, I would imagine, the size of the screen.
Yeah, I'm just sad they don't have a free version of that game for the PC. Like, that would be really convenient. Just saying.
Convenience is not my problem. I'm not here for your convenience.
I feel like someone should make that kind of game for the desktop.
Yeah, but it's called SimCity.
Yeah, but SimCity Build It is free to play.
They probably had some kind of version on Facebook before Flash went down.
They did have a version of SimCity on Facebook.
Well, there
Yeah.
you go.
But I mean one that you can actually download and play properly.
Well,
That isn't going to die off within 5 seconds.
that's
Because that user interface on the right side screen is simple enough to figure out. The graphics don't have to be top tier. And the user experience for it, I found it quite enjoyable. And I know many people find that game enjoyable. So why not?
because I said so.
So, Elder Scrolls, let's hear about that user interface.
It's definitely changed over the years for both good and bad.
Okay, what's one good thing they've done?
Well, let's see. For starters, going from Morrowind to Oblivion, so Elder Scrolls 3 to 4 and beyond, Skyrim has it too, is the quest tracking. It got a lot easier. In Morrowind, you just had a journal. You know, you hit J to pull up your journal, and as you came across quests or stuff, they would show up in your journal, but you had like no way to search for them or anything. So like if you got a quest really early in the game and then you finally hours later find something that, oh, that goes to that quest, you'd have to go through your journal and thumb through all the pages to get back to it to figure out where you're supposed to take it, which
So, essentially, you should be taking notes on physical paper while you're playing the game.
well, basically that's what it was. It was taking notes on the digital paper so you could scroll back like and you could find out where you wanted, like if you had a good enough memory to remember, oh yeah, this goes there, you wouldn't need to do it. But it was basically a note taking system that the computer just automatically took the note for you for the quest instead of you having to do it manually. Whereas with the later ones, you know, you actually had a quest log with the filters and stuff. You know, you could find, you know, the whole list of primary quests, side quests, faction quests, stuff like that. So that was an improvement. There are some things like about Morrowind that I loved and I wish they had kept in the game though.
Okay.
One being the different ways you could do your outfit, kind of like you were saying. But in Morrowind, you had, okay, you could get boots, pants, right and left glove, right and left pauldron, helmet. I even think it may have been right and left boots, but I'm not sure about that. No, I think they were just one pair of boots. Then, you know, you could do your pants or whatever. Then I think they might have even had a belt and all that. But you go into Oblivion, the next game, you just had boots, gloves, chest piece, and a helmet, and that's pretty much how it is in Skyrim too. Like they dumbed it down. Whereas in the older game, you could have like a heavy iron pauldron on one side, which is your shoulder piece for people who might not know, and like a light leather one on the other. So like you could kind of customize your outfit a little bit more and do kind of some cool stuff with it, you know, and you know it just, you know, depending on the type of character build you were going for, you know, heavy armor can weigh you down and make you not very good at certain actions. Also, like as a lot of people have said, they definitely made the game easier or dumbed it down because back in the old days, like your chance of hitting with a weapon was entirely based on your skill. So if you had like 5 skill in daggers, you could swing away at an enemy and never hit them. Which,
Wow.
which like some people love that, some people hate it because I'm like, how do you freaking miss every single time? And it's like the only time you would increase your skill is if you actually hit an enemy with the dagger or whatever.
Right.
Plus, they just had more weapons available or different types. They had daggers, short swords, long swords, axes, maces, clubs, staves, short bows, long bows, like you name it, they had it. Pole arms, you know, and like nowadays you just have in Skyrim, you have, okay, you got swords, you have maces or blunt, and then you have axes. I mean, you can switch between one-handed and two-handed, you know, but like the stat for them all is all the same basically. Like if you're good with the sword, you're good with the sword. If you're good with the
That's
axes,
lame.
yeah, like they just made it. It was a lot harder to level up back in the old days, and it was a more of a sense of accomplishment. Whereas in the newer games, like some people that they like not hack, but you know, just take advantage of loopholes and stuff where you can max out your stats on a character before you leave the tutorial area and basically become a walking god in the game.
Wow.
However, the funny part is the people that do that, when you leave the tutorial area, you still have tutorial area level gear, and the game levels up with you. So, like, you leave that, you're walking out into, like, your basic light armor or heavy armor, depending on which one you choose in the thing, like, the lowest quality of that. And the random bandits and enemies, they'll be on, like, their level 100 type of gear. So, like, they will still beat the crap out of you just because your armor and everything sucks so much compared to what they're using. So, like, the game did kind of try to balance its stuff out. Like, people still know how to get past it and do that kind of stuff. And, there's also, like the infinite money hacks and stuff that people, or exploits, that's the word I'm looking for. Exploits, not hacks. Exploits that people do. So yeah. I mean, the game's been out for over 10 years. People are gonna do what they want with it nowadays. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, talk about exploits. I know a fair bit about that one.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever used them or anything, especially not when I'm live streaming.
I'll do exploits when I'm just messing around, hanging out with myself or whatever, having a good time. But like if I'm trying to be serious in a game, and actually play it for reals, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do exploits. Except in Skyrim, I always do wind up becoming a stealth archer, no matter how much I don't want to.
Fair enough.
It's just the most powerful build in the game. Like with stealth archers, if you get good at it, you can basically one-shot almost anything in the game.
So, how does the user interface play into the gameplay of that?
Oh, definitely the maps have gotten better. And how to find things. They did introduce fast travel into the fourth one, which is both great and sucks at the same time. Like, I have a love-hate relationship with fast travel in the Elder Scrolls games because, one, yeah, it saves you a heck of amount of time, but two, it cuts out so much of the game because those games are like, go out, explore, see the world. If you just fast travel everywhere, it's like you're missing 90% of the game. Like, we kind of mentioned it in one of our earlier podcasts. Like, you'll just find random stuff as you're running around that leads you on these great epic quests and do all this kind of cool stuff. But the user interface in itself, like, they added a compass to the UI in 4. I don't really remember there being one in Morrowind, so it was a lot easier to get lost in Morrowind. I'll say it's been a while since I've played Morrowind, so I could be wrong. They may have had a simple one, but I believe it was more just they kind of had like a mini map in a corner. The map wouldn't rotate, but your little arrow pointing your guy would, so you could tell if you're going north, south, east, or west, or whatever.
Right.
But on the newer ones, the compass that they add to the middle of the screen, like it'll show like nearby points of interest as you get close to things, and they'll like be shaded out like a blackish kind of color until you get close enough and you quote unquote discover them, and then that will unlock fast traveling to and from that place also once you discover it. So like, and then for the most part, I would say they've been pretty similar UIs like for the rest of it, like your health and your stamina and your mana or magicka as they call it in that game. They're the 3 little bars, and they go down as you use them or get hit, and they'll fill back up kind of a stuff.
Right.
Targeting reticles, I do like the fact that you can switch freely between first and third person in all of them. Like that, for me, like if you have a game that's a third person game that requires shooting accurately of any kind, you better have some way to switch to first person.
Agreed.
So like if you're playing an archer or even a mage, I usually play Skyrim in them in first person. If I'm just playing a melee guy that swings his sword around or whatever, I like to play in third person.
Okay. I can see that.
One, because that gives you a better view of like people coming up behind you and stuff, so you know how to turn around and stuff in time. I will say the combat in all those games is fairly simplistic. It's not very difficult combat to master. It's not quite button mashing, but it's a lot of trigger pulling. Because you pull the trigger to swing your weapon or whatever, or cast your spells, or pull your bow and all that kind of stuff.
So it's trigger pulling instead of button mashing, but still the same idea.
Yeah, like they don't have like combos or nothing like in some of those games. Like if you hit AXB or whatever, you'll do a special cool move or nothing. It's nothing like that. If you use a sword and a shield or even a spell and a shield, the right trigger will attack with your weapon and the left trigger will put your shield up. So there is some skill involved with learning how to time the blocks and everything and all that kind of stuff. Because if you get a perfect block, it'll stun the enemy and open them up for a,
counterattack.
Counterattack, basically. flurry of hits or whatever.
Nice.
And all that also depends on your perks that as I said, you have to level up your weapon skills. And after so many skill level ups, you gain a level, and each level you get a couple of perks depending on the game. And yeah, like that was another thing. Speaking of thing, like back in Morrowind, how many perk points you got to spend, and not necessarily how many, but how much they increased depended on what you did to level up. So if you used your sword a lot to anything, when you put a point into your sword skill thing, like it increased it by a bunch. Whereas in Skyrim, no matter what you do, you just get a flat perk point and you can put it anywhere you want. But yeah, like it's pretty fun. It's interesting. Mass Effect was another really great series that I love, made by BioWare, who I know they've made games that you enjoy also.
Yep.
But yeah, Mass Effect's cool. It's anyone hasn't played it, it's a sci-fi RPG space game where you play Commander Shepard, and yeah, that's a great game. I could go into, but I don't want to go into spoilers or anything for anyone who hasn't played that game series because it's great. I will say, there are multiple endings to that game series.
So,
and
how does that relate to
And,
user interface?
I was gonna say the user interface improved in each one over the time. Like, it's been a while since I played them, so I'd have to really think. But like, it's completely different from Skyrim because it's an RPG, yes, but it's definitely more of a shooter RPG.
Right.
You have guns. There is a melee attack, but you hardly ever use that. But they have guns. They have what they call biotics, which is basically the Force for Star Wars fans. and
Wow.
and they have tech trees. It's not exactly the Force, but that's the easiest way to explain it.
So basically magic.
Yeah, it's space magic. It's it lets you do all these, like, their actual thing is like you can create mass effect fields and stuff. So like you have one that, like, the simple push attack will push enemies away. You can lift them up in the air and hold them still while your squad shoots them out. That's the other thing, is it is a squad kind of a game. It's a single player, but you get to pick at least two what do you call them, companions to go with you on each mission and stuff. And like there's romance options available for people who are into that. Like, it's a great series. If anyone hasn't played it, I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorite game series also, even though it's been a while since I played it. You can stop with the Legendary Edition, or basically Mass Effect 3. Andromeda, most Mass Effect fans will tell you, was a letdown. Like, it's set in the same universe, but you're in a different galaxy, different character, freaking years into technically the future, because like it starts at the same time as the thing, but then you get Cairo frozen and shipped off to the Andromeda galaxy, which is thousands of light years away for anyone who knows actual space. And so like you get out of carbon freezing basically, and so like technically like it's in the future, but not, kind of a thing. It's really weird. But yeah, I'm talking more about the games themselves and the actual interface here, because
Yeah.
I'm not specialized in user interface, but let me see if I can pull up some
Well, while you're
examples
pulling
of the user
While
interface.
you're pulling up examples that you can talk about, I'll just drop into the Forza Horizon series.
Yeah. You take over for a bit.
The Forza Horizon series has a user interface that has drastically evolved over the 5 games that have been released thus far. Open world driving race exploration game. The first game, it was really weird because the way it was set up is, it was a music festival first and foremost, with cars being how you get around the map.
Mm-hmm.
And at the central hub, that also acted as a user interface, because you'd go to your garage, you'd go to the auto dealer, you'd go to a paint shop, you'd go to your parts shop, and everything was so separated that the hub of the game was its own user interface, which made things really difficult to figure out where everything was. You couldn't just go into, say, the festival site and go buy a car, go paint your car, go upgrade your car, go tune your car, go whatever. Everything was so separate.
Right.
Horizon 2, they introduced a new version of the Horizon Hub, Festival Hub, where it was just like a building space that you go to, you go into it, and everything is in the menus.
Right.
And that was sort of the formula they've built off of. Starting with Horizon 4, they introduced the Player House, which basically was a second version of the Horizon Festival Hub. So everything but in a different place, different scenery, different backgrounds, so on and so forth.
Right.
Which they also finally allowed you to paint your car outside. So you could see what your car would look like in the actual game, rather than just an overlit, saturated garage space. And all these different menus, even the core menus that we had from Horizon 2 through Horizon 5 have changed. Like the whole UI, they're always changing it from game to game. And I like it, but I don't like it.
Right.
Like, for instance, yesterday I was on Horizon 4 trying to get an image of a car for a project I'm working on. And I could not remember where one of the features was because I haven't touched Horizon 4 in a while, and these features change literally game to game where they're going to be in the menus. So the user interface is constantly changing from game to game, which makes it very difficult to remember where certain things are.
Right.
So, yeah, that's Horizon user interfacing for you, which makes the user experience really frustrating when you're trying to go between the different games.
True. I don't think the Mass Effect UI changed incredibly too much between 1, 2, and 3 anyway. Andromeda, it changed it up a little bit more. But, yeah, like 1, 2, and 3, like you basically had, like, obviously your menu layers were different than your actual in-game playing things, but, it was still pretty simple. They did keep like they have the radial menu thing. Like, doesn't Assassin's Creed have something like that?
Have a what menu?
A radial menu when you like hold a button and it pulls up the different options of things you can select. Some of the older ones or something. Or
They have different kinds of menus for
just
what
like
was
like
it?
the actual in-game menu, not like the main menu type of
Yeah.
stuff. But,
Like they've had menus where you can swap between your weapons and gear and well, not gear per se, but different tools, like a
Right.
tool wheel.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I know Assassin's Creed had something serial like, or
Yeah.
not serial, similar. I speak English, I promise. Whereas in
English, do you speak it?
you missed 2 words in the middle there.
Yeah, I'm not repeating those 2 words. Copyright, if nothing else.
But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, in Mass Effect, you like since it's a squad game, you can command your squad or whatever and tell them to use certain abilities, and you also have different ones you can use at the same time. So like, there's a button that if you hold, it pulls up a circular menu, and like it's divided into 3 quadrants: one for one person, one for another, and one for you. And you can basically queue the ability you want them to use, and it's kind of like turn-based, but not at the same time. You know what I mean? How like you can
Right.
stack commands kind of a thing, and they'll do them in order kind of a thing. But it's not like turn-based. Oh, you go attack, and then oh, I go attack. But like it's all like interactive live as you're moving. But you can just like stack commands and stuff. So
Yeah.
and like even with your own abilities, so like you can like switch between ammo types, like, oh, I want to use my incendiary ammo against this type of enemy that I know is weak to fire. So instead of having to like pause, go through the pause menu and switch your things, which like you could do it that way too, but like it's just easier to hold the I think it was one of the bumpers to pull up the menu and then like select your ammo type thing and then switch it to the different type of ammo, and like you can like set favorites, I think is how you could do it, to like because you could unlock so many things by the time you're like max leveled in the game. And like it was pretty fun. Quick, easy way to switch things or tell your people to use. Hey, you're one of those people that can use the black hole freaking thing. So like it creates like this little mini black hole that sucks all the enemies into one damage area and just really messes them up. Biotics are
That sort of thing does remind me of another game, kind of. As being able to tell your teammates, if you will, your units, what to do. I remember a function similar to that in, I forget if it was Ace Combat 6 or Tom Clancy's Hawks. They had
yeah,
something like that for your squad mates.
yeah. Lots of games that have squads have some kind of thing. Like Mass Effect also has the very basic like without pulling up the menu, if you point your targeting reticle in a certain direction and push left or right, you'll tell either one of your squad people to go to that position kind of a thing, and then if you press I want to say down or up, you'll all regroup back together kind of a thing. So like you have those basic commands, and then like I said with the radio menu, the more hey use this type of attack commands or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a really cool function that we have in certain games. And the UI for it is so simple.
Yeah, it is. It's a very simple command, and like there'll be a lot of times I forget to use it sometimes, so I make the game harder on myself instead of like I said like hey this
Oops.
type of enemy is very vulnerable to fire. I'll forget to switch on my not for me so much because it's like just an automatic thing, but like I'll forget to tell my squad mates to like hey switch to this type of ammo type kind of a thing.
Um,
But yeah.
yeah, that's on you then.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100% on me. Like it's not a user interface type thing. It's just like me. I'm focused in on what I'm doing. Most of the time, I don't tell my squad mates to use their special abilities, unless it's usually the time I do is like on boss fights is when I'll remember to do it because you need help with the boss fights. Like the normal grunts, they're pretty much easy. Run and gun, mow them down. Your people's basic attacks and like you can set it up so like they will automatically use their attacks on their own too, so like that's usually what I do, but like sometimes you want to hey stop using that particular attack against this enemy because it's just annoying.
Just to make things more challenging, do you ever turn the in-game user interface off on the games you play? So the mini map, the button, the some games I know have icons saying, here's what attacks you have set up for this character, whatever. And so that will be on the screen. And then you have quest information that pops up. Like, do you ever play and just turn all that stuff off so all you see is the game?
You completely immerse yourself so you don't
Yeah,
know your health and all that kind of stuff.
correct.
Usually not. I've done it a little bit. Usually, though, the only time I'm hiding my UI is if I'm taking a screenshot or something. Like, to me, I'm like, I don't want to experience the real life chaos of what's going on. I'm here to play a video game and have fun. So, and like, I know some people find that fun. For me personally, I'm like, yeah, that's just causing too much stress. I don't want to do that. Like, I enjoy a minimal UI, but like, I need some type of HUD to know what's going on.
That's fair.
That's just me. And, not dogging or putting down anyone who enjoys turning off the UI and doing the complete immersion thing.
I mean, I think the only time I would ever do that is if the game didn't have a photo mode built in.
Mm-hmm.
So I do it to get a clean shot.
Yeah.
Or if I ever got into VR, maybe do that for VR to completely immerse myself. Like, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be a little bit more fun with VR, and even for me, if I have when I'm playing with my headset is more often when I will attempt to do something like that because I need that spatial sound to tell me where things are coming from.
Yes.
Because like if you try to do that with like just playing on a television or a monitor or anything without just the regular speakers, I'm like you can kind of tell if you have a decent speaker system, but if like you just have like one of those mono speakers or something, like it's not nearly as good. Like reminds me of another Viva La Dirt League video I saw the other day. It was like they were playing a game and like the one dude's like, how can you guys tell where all this stuff is coming from? And so like they're testing him out. They're like, okay, close your eyes, like, and they're walking around him and firing their gun once. You're like, where's that coming from? And he's just pointing in random different directions. They're like, what's wrong with your headphones? He's like, headphones? I'm using speakers. So they tell him, go put your headphones on. So like he does, and then like all of a sudden he's just overwhelmed with all the directional sounds and everything. He just kind of collapses on the floor and is just like twitching there.
Man, I remember when I first got a decent headset and I had the spatial audio for the first time. I was just like, oh my god, that's a different experience right there. Like that is a huge game changer.
These things go backwards. Game changer.
Oh man, that was wild. I wonder how much better at, say, Left 4 Dead I would have been back in the day.
Oh yeah, I play State of Decay with my brother a lot, and like gotta play that game with my headphones on, so that way I know which direction the zombies are coming from. It is so much better, and like we're not always on the same screen at each other, so I'm like I'll hear gunshots off in the distance, and we're on headset with each other. You know, I'm like, was that you? No, I'm like, shh, somebody's coming,
Uh oh.
kind of thing. Yeah, because there are NPCs, and they're not always nice to you in that game. They will kill your people, and death in that game is permanent. If your person dies, they're dead.
Dead dead or just dead?
Sometimes they become the Walking Dead if zombies kill them.
Uh oh.
Yeah, which is great fun because if your person dies, you gotta hopefully pick another person from your survivors group, go back and find that person and kill them so you can get all the stuff that they had back.
Wow.
Yeah. Other times they'll just die, even if it's the zombies that kill them, and you have to go find bodies and loot their stuff because, like, yeah, in that game it's a survival game, so like stuff is very important.
Yeah, I'm not as big into that sort of thing. Like
Like,
Left 4 Dead and say Back 4 Blood are the closest I'll get.
oh no, man, State of Decay, it's a great game. I love it. And
Hey, I know
oh
people who are into it, and I'm not knocking on them or
yeah,
you,
yeah,
but it's just not my thing.
for sure. And I'm not knocking on you for not enjoying it. Like recently, me and my brother have been playing on the lethal difficulty, which is the hardest one they've got. And like, oh, it's so hard. Like just the other day, I had not the other day, yesterday, in fact, I had spent a bunch of my in-game currency to recruit a new person, into my community, and like their very first mission that I'm taking off with them, they get murked right away, and I'm like, well, that was a fantastic waste of money.
Wow. Getting back to user interfaces, I don't have the game yet, but I just heard about an update for Assassin's Creed Mirage
Yeah.
where they now have a new game mode, and of course you find it in the user interface. Basically, it's a permadeath gameplay mode where you have three level difficulties with a different set of rewards for completing the whole game on each of those difficulties.
Hmm.
But here's the thing: you die, you have to start at the beginning again.
Yeah. I both enjoy and hate games like that.
Well, here's the thing: those games for some players are so easy that even on the hardest difficulty, that they still want more challenge. And this is a great way to do that. And what I find interesting, because I've seen gameplay of it, the user interface display for when you die, it tells you what part of the story you died in, and then it just does a full breakdown of all your stats up to that point.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I
So,
both really like it because I do like the challenge of, and it's kind of like realistic, even though I've said sometimes I don't want realistic in my games. I just want to play my games for fun. But if I'm playing a game for a challenge, like I said, with this State of Decay, like I like the difficulty. Like if your survivor person dies, they're dead. You don't get to bring them back. There's no pulling up a previous save thing. The game is constantly auto saving and overwriting itself. So like you can't be like, nope, I didn't like that, and go back and redo your mission kind of thing. Like yeah, if your person dies, they're dead, and you have to pick another survivor to try and then accomplish the mission or abandon it. You can just be like, yep, screw, I'm not doing that mission yet because I'm not ready. I don't have the proper equipment, kind of a thing.
right.
So like it's fun and aggravating at the same time. I will admit. Like so like yeah, sometimes I like that challenge of realism, and sometimes I just like no, I want to be this superhero who just smashes everything, and now you can't stop me. Both types of gameplay are valid and fun. But
That makes me think of the Spider-Man games where you're just smashing stuff and web slinging. And how's the UI for that game?
oh, it's pretty good. It's simple. It's like, um, yeah, there's not a whole lot on the UI. I mean, you have your health meter, I believe it's up all the time, or it might just pop up when you're in combat and it's the only time you're looking for it.
How
But
about the UI when you're web slinging out in the open world exploring?
yeah, I said it's pretty basic. It's I do believe there is a little mini map in the corner, which is not really necessary, but it's mostly there for like it'll show like certain kind of like I mentioned the compass in Skyrim. It'll show like nearby
Right.
things you can collect or missions or whatever. But like also like you just go to your main menu and select which mission you want to do, and it'll put a target thing on your
A
thing.
waypoint.
Yeah, waypoint. Thank you. That's the word that was trying to come to my head. A waypoint that you can follow and see, and like yeah, it's pretty easy to web swing around. Like obviously when you're first playing you have the little tutorials that pop up to tell you how to do things, and like yeah, they're helpful, they're good for people who haven't played it before. By now they're like they're annoying, go away. but
So
but
I
for
have a question about this.
okay, I might have
Um,
an answer.
when you're web slinging, does anything pop up on the different buildings visually for the UI to say, hey, this is an anchor point you can connect to with the web
No,
to swing?
no, it pretty much does it by itself, but there does have to be something there that you can swing on. Like you can't like in the old like PlayStation, Xbox, original Xbox games, you could just swing anywhere and it just not make any sense. But in like newer stuff, like yeah, there has to be buildings nearby to swing from, and like the web will anchor to a building. Like it doesn't like give you ones to hang out to. You just pull the trigger and he just automatically shoots ones nearby and
Okay.
whichever thing. Like you can even web
Bec-
swing from trees if you want. If you're in Central Park.
The only reason why I was asking about that is going back to a slightly old, actually, yeah, it's actually on the older side now. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. You had part of the Assassin's Gauntlets a zipline feature, and
Yeah,
you had to target specific points on buildings that were close enough.
yeah, that is a little bit closer to the Batman games with his grappling hook
Right.
thing. Like, yeah, you have to. There are certain anchor points you have to be able to attach to and stuff.
And so having
Whereas,
that UI is also interesting to me.
yes, and
So
another feature that also involves that grappling hook gun and the UI is certain like vents or whatever you could fire the grappling hook gun at and then pull them down so you can then climb up into them to hide because Batman's a sneaky little guy kind of thing. But
little, no. Sneaky, yes.
okay,
Big and
well then these are very large vents that they have all over Gotham.
so yeah, that's why I was asking about Spider-Man, and so I was thinking back to the UI of Syndicate, where you had to lock on to specific points to use it.
Yeah, like so like with the Batman and the grappling hook that's more what it's like. I mean, there are a few
Yeah.
things where you can just like fire and he'll randomly grab one, but like he still does it in the general direction that you're aiming. But there are certain things where like yeah, you actually have to target with the grappling hook where you want to go, and there has to be something there. Not everything in the Batman universe is grappling hookable, whereas like if it was Spider-Man, yeah, he could like any building anything that's above. Like there were even in some of the older games, there was like you could even swing from helicopters. I don't know if you still can do that
You should try.
other than in the actual cutscenes. Like there's not too many helicopters flying around New York City in the game. Most of them they're there and you can see them, but they're outside the bounds of the actual map of the game, kind of a thing.
That's lame.
But like in I want to say I think it was the Spider-Man 2 game from the Tobey Maguire movies, there was a mission where you actually had to swing onto a helicopter and have it carry you out to Liberty Island to get to the Statue of Liberty kind of a thing.
Interesting.
Which like those old Spider-Man games, the ones based off the Tobey Maguire movies, were another heavy inspiration for the web swinging in these newer PlayStation Marvel Spider-Man games. Like I watched a video on it a while ago. It was where like the current developers from Insomniac brought in some of the old people from Treyarch who made those old ones, and like, yeah, we totally were inspired by your web slinging, and we loved it so much, like we wanted to incorporate it, and they got to play it before like most people did, and like, yeah, you guys took what we did and you improved it 100% kind of a thing. So I'm like, that was really cool, kind of a thing. Like, I would love that as a game dev someday to like have a really popular game and then someone take a mechanic from it and improve on it in another game in the series, but also not in the series because they're not direct continuations of. They're just both Spider-Man games, but like I think that would be cool. Just to be like, yeah, you took what we did and you made it so much better years down the line, and like I think that would be cool.
That is really fascinating.
It is fascinating. Like that's my dream one day. But instead, right now, all I do is make a basic match 3 game, which has a super simple interface.
Indeed. But hey, even mobile games with super simple interfaces can still make a lot of money.
True.
Just have to make it compelling enough and market the game somehow.
Don't compel at me, I compel at you.
Oh.
Oh, I know what Sorry. I just had a random thought about something else pop into my head there. Speaking of the match 3 game, I was working on it a little bit earlier and something wasn't working right, and now it just like, that's what the problem was. I wasn't doing the thing correctly. Anywho, blunk.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time I have for today.
Yep, we've just about hit our hour mark. You got 20 seconds, 15, 14, 13.
So,
So,
ladies and gents, again, like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, and again, make sure you start subscribing and promote this podcast if you enjoy it to your friends, your family, whomever else you know enjoy video games, and hey, help us grow.
help us, help me, help you, help me, something like that.
So, if that, have a good week and a good day.
Hasta luego.